From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
Hello, everybody. This is Kate Morton with Wisconsinites here with the Capital Chats podcast brought to you by Spectrum. Today, I'm here to share an interview that I did with Missy Hughes. She is a Dem candidate for governor, and she is also the former secretary of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. So here's what she had to say. Well, thank you for joining me today, Missy, on Capital Chats. I think to get us started off talking about your campaign, could you just tell me, what made you decide to run for governor?
Well, I've had the opportunity in the last 6 years to work for Governor Evers, running the state's Economic Development Corporation. And before that, working at Organic Valley with the farmers. And I feel that I just really have an understanding of Wisconsin's economy. And now more than ever, we need a governor who is waking up every morning thinking about how to keep Wisconsin's economy strong and how to build it for the future.
Yeah, so if you were elected, what would be some of your top policy priorities?
Well, first and foremost, we want to be thinking about the things that are really holding Wisconsinites back right now. As I travel around the state, as I talk to Wisconsinites, they are talking about housing, they're talking about childcare, and they're talking about affordability. And so we want to first attack those issues and really be as smart and tactical as we can be. So at WEDC, we were able to work in regions all around the state and communities around the state building housing. We saw some really innovative practices and some things that are just getting done and putting, shovels in the ground and bricks, building walls so that we can start to build housing. And that's where we really need to first, we just need to move and have impact as quickly as possible. It's something I was able to do throughout my career, is just to make things happen. And that's where I want to start.
Yeah, so you mentioned housing, affordability. Any other top issues that you really think need to be addressed right now in Wisconsin?
Well, we want to make sure that we're investing back in ourselves. And so, as we think about education, that is a place where for years and years we have seen the Republicans pull investment away, both from our public schools, our universities, and our tech colleges. So we want to look and get that investment back and happening again. It's honestly just a crying shame that for years we built these wonderful institutions, and then we've made the decision, or the Republicans have made the decision, to pull back on that investment. And you have to keep investing in yourselves in order to keep growing.
All right, so you mentioned you used to have a role leading WEDC as secretary. I'm curious, how that would inform your work as governor.
Well, as Secretary of WEDC, I worked with communities and with businesses. So, first with communities in their efforts to make project happen. So, you can imagine a community that needs a dental clinic or that's thinking about childcare. WEDC was able to step in with resources and be able to make that actual investment happen. And then the communities have quick wins and they can continue to build momentum. Businesses are really looking to solve problems and thinking about growing and expanding. And at WEDC, I was able to sit down with businesses again and again, understand the challenges that they're facing, and help them find solutions for it. And as governor, what I would do is, again, sit down with communities, sit down with businesses, sit down with Wisconsinites, understand what their problems are, understand what their challenges are, and then work towards solutions.
Yeah, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges for businesses right now?
Well, businesses are really facing challenges of concerns with the economy, what's happening. It's very unpredictable right now. And what happens when businesses feel this uncertainty is they pull back. They maybe don't rehire somebody, or they maybe don't make that investment, to add on to their factory or things like that. And so once we see that retraction, you start to see a real ripple effect through the economy. So, what a governor can do is really provide that stability, really provide that chance for businesses to say, okay, I understand what's coming towards me. It's not that businesses need, absolute free ride or, anything like that. They just need some predictability in order to be willing to make that hire, in order to be willing to make that investment. And right now, the unpredictability that businesses are facing, whether it's from tariffs or whether it's just from the overall concern about where the economy is going to go, is going to have ripple effects that will impact how our overall economy in Wisconsin does.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you also, considering you did serve in the Evers administration, he's been in office for a while now. I'm wondering what issues would you approach differently from him as he has when he's been in office?
Well, first I would say that Governor Evers really faced an incredibly difficult situation with a Republican legislature that refused to come to the table and work with him again and again and again. And what I would look to do is, in the face and hopes of having a different makeup of our legislature, we're going to see potentially a Democratic Senate. We're potentially going to see a Democratic Assembly, but we're going to see more people focused and coming to the middle. And so, what I want to do is have the opportunity to sit down and create those relationships across the aisle and with new leadership and really work towards what are the long term solutions we can create for Wisconsin. We need to rebuild our policymaking chops in Wisconsin because we've had such a divided government, and we need to see if we can find ways to really develop policy that works for Wisconsinites.
Yeah, so you would be, if elected, you would be coming into office at a time when the state has really been at odds with the Trump administration over a lot of issues, whether it be federal funding, immigration policy. So, what would your relationship look like with the Trump administration? How would you navigate that?
Well, I think what we're seeing right now with the unpredictability with, foreign policy, national policy, immigration, again and again, really impacting how people are living their everyday lives and adding stress. My goal would be, how do you relieve that stress? And in my mind, it's about trying to find solutions and trying to move things forward. Right now, we don't have an immigration policy in the United States. We have ICE acting, indiscriminately on streets, but we need to have leadership that's coming to the table and saying, here's what immigration would look like. Now, that's not the traditional role of a governor, but we need to have leaders that are willing to say, okay, how do we move things forward? How do we find solutions? I'm going to offer something and folks can react to it. And I think there's a real role for strong statewide leadership to start to step in and say, okay, we need to create some stability here and we need to have some solutions on these big policy issues.
Okay, is there anything else before we wrap it up that you would like Wisconsinites to know about your campaign?
Well, there are some interesting, more kind of fun things about my story. I live in southwestern Wisconsin. I've raised three children with my husband, and we live out on a farm with 70 sheep and a couple donkeys and a few dogs. And so, there's something amazing about coming from the western side of the state and yet having done a ton of work all around the state, including in our cities of Kenosha or Milwaukee or Madison. So I'm excited to be able to continue my work and continue to serve the people of Wisconsin. So I just wanted folks to know there's a little bit more fun than just the economic side of things.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Kate.
All right, everyone, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Capital Chats. If you want to hear more about the governor race in Wisconsin, you can head to our website at wispolitics.com. But for now, I'm Kate Morton. You're listening to WisPolitics Capital Chats, brought to you by Spectrum.